am Forrest Carpenter. I do have a background in software development. When I joined OCI, which I'm not allowed to say OCI, I'm supposed to say Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, but we'll be here until about 8 o'clock if I don't say OCI, so nobody tell the Oracle lawyers. I had to learn content strategy. That was given to me on day one. They said, here's another discipline, handle that as well. But luckily, Acrolinx preceded me. So I got that tool for free, and that was very helpful to be able to actually succeed at that. A little bit of background about this particular talk. Last year, Leslie Robertson, who at the time was the Senior Director of Technical Content, and Gabriel Hurley, who was the lead architect on our team, gave this talk in tandem, and they talked about what they called governance at hyperscale, because cloud is an enormous space and an enormous product. And this is intended to be somewhat of an update on that, sort of a year later, where we are at. And a thing about what was said then, and what it will be true in this talk too, is that everything is in flux, everything is moving. I'm in the middle of a 3-month sort of crunch time development effort that I have taken time away from to come here, and I'm sure my engineers are thrilled with me. But I'm going to talk in the present tense. Some things may actually be roadmap or future things, but it's easier if I don't try to differentiate between the two, so please forgive me for that. All right, let's get into actual content. So what is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure? Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is not really a product. It doesn't come in a box. It's actually a set of a number of services that are offered online through the web, and then you log into a website console, and then you can use those services. As such, services are changing, coming and going, and so it's a constantly changing thing. You can't just publish a set of documentation and then wait 3 months and do it again. It's also, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure is also not the only cloud product at Oracle, and that will come into play later on in this discussion. We were launched in October of 2016 as a product. I joined Oracle Cloud Infrastructure about 9 months later in the summer of 2017. On day one, when Oracle Cloud Infrastructure was launched, technical content or documentation was a first-class component of that product. It was just as important as the compute service and the storage service and the networking service. Maybe even more important than the load balancing service, if you ask me. But it was right there at the top and has always been right there at the top. It was there on the first day we launched, and it's always been there. And that's because our leadership has always felt that the documentation is a part of the experience of using the cloud product. As such, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on us pressure is not the right word, but to keep that product, that component of the product up to date and available at all times for our customers. Cloud itself is a very self-service space. Nobody expects to, or rather, the expectation for most cloud operators is they will go to the cloud website, they will be able to do things on their own without professional services help, without having to contract to a system administrator or something. And the technical content has to go along with that. It has to be just as self-service and just as available. That's our goal when we produce this. Right now, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure comprises about 30 or 40 services. Again, because of the nature of the product, it's hard to really pin down and say it's this specific number. I can tell you a specific number, and that's 17 tech writers that we have on staff who are embedded with the different service groups so that they can become subject matter experts. But they're embedded with the teams, but they are not. But they are actually centralized to one organization within our group, and that's because we feel like there's sort of we kind of get the best of both worlds that way. They have common practices, common tooling. They can commiserate on how they want to approach things strategically, but then they have that subject matter expertise from being in like the daily meetings with their individual service teams. And so those 17 tech writers are some of my primary customers. They're the folks who are using the tools that my engineers produce, and they are absorbing the information and guidance and governance that my content strategists provide. So this is just a screenshot of our beautiful documentation portal. It looks just like that if you go to it on the web. In addition to the documentation that those service writers produce, this website itself also contains API and SDK documentation, and that's primarily authored by the developers of those services themselves. We also have, within this hierarchy, we have solution documents and white papers that are written by solution architects. Those are primarily from our outbound product management group. They're not part of our tech writing organization. So while we have the sort of close camaraderie with our tech writers, we also have other authors spread throughout the organization who we also have to serve and provide with the same sort of infrastructure and the same sort of support. My content strategy team also includes a technical editor who is responsible for editing all of the blogs on blogs.oracle.com. I don't have that up here because I don't own that website, but all of their content runs through us as well. And we're also responsible for a lot of internal communications within our line of business, so email blasts and things like that also run through our editorial process or our Acrolinks process for that consistency of voice. All right, that's the editor. That's Kelly. She's right there. She's very embarrassed. Kelly made that style guide. As I've heard many times over the last couple of days, we all know the importance of style guides. We all have opinions about their length and their efficacy. Kelly started, and we handed her a 345-page PDF from Oracle Corporation, and we said, make this not terrible. In all deference to the Oracle folks who may be watching this on YouTube. It's great, it's very thorough, but it's not cloud specific. It's not for our audience of our tech writers and our audience of our customers who are expecting to read this content. It's a very big, very comprehensive document, but we needed something small and agile for Oracle Cloud. And Kelly put this together, and it's brilliant, and it's great, and it's actually gotten accolades from the folks in corporate who wrote the big one. So she did that, and she did that very well. And I've got a little hiding in the back there. There's Acrolinks as well, because all of the style guide standards that Kelly's put into that document are reflected in our guidelines in Acrolinks, and that's how they're enforced when she's not hand editing a document. So. All right, so a little bit about our architecture. This is meant to be amusing, but essentially right now, and again, I said I would talk in past and present and future, but if I'm talking about how we're scaling, I kind of have to do a little bit of right now and future. Previous to this talk, our infrastructure was pretty straightforward. A writer would use Madcap Flare to create their content. They would use the Acrolinks sidebar to score it. They would check it into Bitbucket. My engineers put together a system to then combine all of that HTML with the SDKs and APIs and white papers that I mentioned before, wrap it up in a big tarball, and ship it out to a web server. That was it. It was very linear, and it was kind of one workflow. As my colleague Gabriel described last year, it did use, we leveraged some technologies that made it a little bit more robust. It's containerized. All of our servers and everything are not really servers. They're code, Terraform code checked into repositories, and everything's deployed in an automated fashion. So we had the beginnings of what could be a very flexible infrastructure, but it was very specific to the young days of OCI and our need to rapidly iterate and get content out there as the services are getting out there. But the product has been maturing, and so what we'll be talking about today is where we've gone since then. Okay, so now our entire infrastructure for technical content is running on our own product. We are running within the OCI tenancy, so we are running on our own cloud. You can pick your metaphor however you like. We prefer drinking your own champagne to some of the other ones. Exactly. This allows us to be highly available and fault tolerant. This allows us to have instances in several data centers around the world, primarily in the US and EMEA. We have the capability now to do better sort of dev, test, staging, production workflows and have that flexibility that we didn't have with the very sort of minimalist infrastructure that we had before. So this is true for all of our build systems, for our Acrolinks servers, for our basically any technology that we offer is now fully housed in our own cloud. And that was a big effort over the last year, almost since exactly when this talk was given last year till now, has taken us to make that migration possible. So yeah, Acrolinks, like I say, is one of those things that we've moved into that cloud environment. And so that has allowed us to have much more redundant backup system for it. We've been able to rapidly deploy or upgrade in a much more scalable fashion, and I'm going to use that word quite a lot today. I apologize. It's very cliche. We've also migrated from MySQL to a database as a service backend, so we don't have dedicated MySQL servers anymore. We're taking advantage of our own company's industry-leading database as a service offering. And we have not had, I'm I'm skipping one page ahead. And we moved our doc site to the cloud as well. So the cloud itself is serving the documentation on how to use it. It's a very circular kind of thing. Don't think too hard about it. So we're no longer serving out of a single data center. We're serving all over the world. And in the entire time that we were migrating all of these tools, one of the biggest things that we had to make sure that we could not do was have any kind of interruption, both to our internal customers who are using our tools and to our end user customers who are trying to read our content. And I'm happy to say that when we migrated all of our infrastructure, we did not have to interrupt any of our writers or any of our other content contributors. And when we moved the documentation site, we managed to do that without having any downtime whatsoever. And in fact, since our launch in October 2016, we have not lost the doc site except for one data center for one day. So, pretty good. So that's the engineering stuff. That's the stuff I'm really comfortable with. Now we'll talk about content strategy, which is the thing I'm learning about. And I'm learning about it from all of you today and this week, and it's been great. I appreciate it. I've been trying to learn about content strategy for about 2 years. And my content strategy team has been really great in bringing me up to speed on a lot of these things. And for me, I think what it comes back to is who we're writing for. What we see on the slide here is a screenshot of our OCI values. And Mike had, I think, a little comedy bit going on yesterday about, do we have value cards? Does anybody remember what they are, et cetera? And knowing I was going to talk about this today, I didn't chime in then because this is the first company I've ever been to where these things actually matter. We talk about these phrases every single day in our office. And when we have meetings, when we're proposing a project, when we're talking about a status, when we're having a performance review for an individual, we talk about how are you putting customers first? How are you nailing the basics? Are you being a jerk? And I specifically wanted to point out that first one, put customers first, because that to me is what drives us in content strategy for OCI. What do the customers need? How do we meet them where they are? How do we engage with them and make sure that they're finding exactly what they need and exactly what they want so that they can then be effective in a very self-service product environment? One of the first things we can identify pretty right off the bat really is we have multiple kinds of customers. We have IT directors who are making purchasing decisions. We have solution architects who are trying to understand capabilities and figure out what the best possible combination of technologies might be for a given problem. We have developers who are implementing those solutions and need to have reference points for how they get that done. And we have operators who are the folks who are maintaining solutions within the cloud and need to know how they can do their jobs effectively. Most of them have very, very strict SLAs, and they want to know that they can count on things working the way that they're documented. We espouse 5 C's of content strategy. I've Googled this set of words, and apparently there's 3 C's, 4 C's, 5 C's, 6 C's, 7 C's. A lot of people have opinions about how many C words go into content strategy. We picked 5. Our 5 are clear, concise, correct, complete, and consistent. And that's our mantra as we go forward with our content strategy meetings. Those are the philosophies we espouse. To get to that, to enable all of the folks that we support, the tech writers, the solution architects, et cetera, to be able to communicate to our users and succeed at all 5 of those things, we have to provide them with tools and support. And that means the style guide, acrolinks, things of that nature, and some other stuff that I'll mention in a moment. So other ways that we need to put our customers first, we're in the midst of a localization effort for our content at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. This year, our fiscal year began just last week. This year, our target is to expand our documentation to 7 additional languages on top of English, with future plans, for additional languages down the road. And as many folks here know, as we look at reading level or sentence length, vocabulary, things of that nature, we can actually enable our third-party localization folks and make that turnaround time much faster. And as we're publishing every single day updates to our documentation site, we can't wait 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks for the localization to be done and the translations to come back, because then we've got 2 sets of documents that are way out of sync already. So the more that we can do to enable the English content to be translatable, the better we will do at localization. Accessibility is another big tenet of what we believe in as far as offering a product on the internet to the general public, recognizing that not everyone is experiencing that content in the same way. My content strategy group, specifically one of my lead content strategists, Scott Marvin, was responsible for putting together the accessibility plan for our entire product, not the documentation, the entire product, the console, everything, because we're the folks who care about it the most. We're the folks who are thinking about the customer at an engagement level that really put us in a position to be able to lead that effort. And so working in concert with the folks who do build the front-end console, we put together all of those accessibility plans, and then we bring that accessibility and those the guidelines from that back into our guidance for how we're writing documentation, how we're putting things together to put them in front of customers. And lastly, there's content that's not docs. There's content that's not documentation. There are, as we've said, there are strings in UIs that are content that should align with the content that's documented. Our API specs and SDKs, as I mentioned earlier, are written by the developers who built them. And they're not really thinking about how the content is going to be consumed. They're worried that the content reflects accurately how a particular piece of software works. So we need to enable them to approach it from a customer aspect without creating too much of a burden. And so again, we're looking for how do we do that with tooling? How do we do that with support documents and that sort of thing? So like I said, this talk is an update of last year's talk. And if last year's talk was called Governing at Hyperscale, then we need to talk about beyond hyperscale. OCI was, at the time of Leslie and Gabriel's talk last year, just coming into its sort of grown-up period. It had spent about a year or two rapidly iterating and just sort of getting out to market, get into people's mindset as far as another cloud player, understand, sort of stake its claim and prove we can do what we say we can do. Now it's really matured and it's a key piece of Oracle's product portfolio, and so we need to mature. Leslie described us previously as a science experiment. I tended to think of us more as a startup because my background is with a lot of tech startups. And there's a certain point in a startup's life cycle where you mature and you have to become what they call a stage 3 startup, where you act like a real business for once. And that's really where OCI is within the broader Oracle sphere. We have to grow up and act like a real business now because we've proven we can do it, in our initial stages here. And don't worry, I'm looking at the clock, Don, and I know I'm almost done. So my job at coming into OCI was to implement all of this infrastructure and content strategy stuff. And I watched Laura talk yesterday, and I thought, I am either a time machine to what she was probably doing a few years ago, or I'm looking forward in time at where I'm hoping to be down the road, because her scale seems much larger than mine, but it feels like a very familiar path. What is beyond hyperscale? Well, I think I said before that we were scaling linearly with our initial effort. Now we're scaling kind of in 3 dimensions. Our infrastructure needs to become more agile. I mentioned that we publish daily, sometimes multiple times a day, but we're doing that for 30 or 40 services. And right now, we have to coordinate all of them at the same time to one publish. If you update and you update, you have to work together, and then we publish a new set of docs. So we're working at how do we make it so that we can granularly publish sections of this monolith without breaking any links, without causing any confusion, and without maybe clobbering one another if we're working in close areas of coordination. We need to have multiple input sources, and we need to have multiple output sources. I've only been showing you web pages because we really only produce web pages. If a customer or a product manager needs a PDF, that's a very manual process for us to produce something like that. If we want to put content into the product console itself as, say, contextual help or inline help text, we have to do that manually right now. We don't have that modularity that we'd like to get to. So we're working on getting to the point where we can have multiple input sources and multiple output sources. One-to-one is easy, many-to-many is hard. That's a pretty common software engineering mantra. The content itself, we need to expand to cover multiple languages. I mentioned that before. And we need to improve the findability of our content. We did a really serious SEO optimization effort over the winter. We saw immediate results with that. And we need to keep iterating on that. We need to make sure that our content is right there visible as soon as the user even considers that they might need to see it. On the governance front, governance to me can go one of two ways. And I think the way that it goes most successfully is when there is trust. If I am governing you in a particular area and you trust that I am doing the right thing, you're going to want to go along with that. You're going to want to adopt that, and you're going to want to contribute to that, that effort. And so we, along with our style guidelines and our other sort of guidance to our writers, we produce analytics and metrics that display to them why we're making our decisions. Why, when we recommend you do a thing, it has this effect. And we can measure that. And that engenders that trust that allows our users to really adopt and espouse our guidelines, which is really, I think, key to a positive interactive experience there. The product itself is still growing. We're adding tons of new services. We're adding, additionally, I mentioned earlier, Oracle had other cloud products. We're bringing all of those within our larger umbrella. And so there's a lot of integration points. And like I say, multiple sources. We're going to be pulling in existing content. We have to figure out how we're going to scale the corpus of our content to match the size of the product. And then lastly, we have to scale within the corporation itself. We have other lines of business within Oracle who are seeing the success of Acrolinks, or they're seeing Acrolinks in the wild on their own, and they're calling up Don or someone else, and he's saying, look at these guys right there. If they're in your company and they're doing it. Now they're reaching out to us and saying, how can we get involved with this too? And we're going to become a service provider for the greater Oracle organization in that way. So we have to scale the content, we have to scale the infrastructure, we have to scale the governance, we have to scale in so many directions right now that I think of it as three-dimensional. It's the only way I can describe it. So we're still doing it with one editor. Hi, Kelly. And we're doing it with Acrolinks. What do we need to succeed at all of those things that I said? Well, we need our infrastructure in the cloud. We did that. That's great. That's helping us quite a bit. We need to continue to focus on the self-service capability. We have to have integrations with things that people use. If they're in Word, we need the Word integration. If they're editing in a web page in Firefox, we need that integration. We need to meet them where they are so that the barrier of entry is very, very low. We're integrating with our own SSO so that we can reduce our administration overload and focus more on the content quality and not on creating user accounts. And we've adopted, as of last year, a licensing model based on volume as opposed to users. And that's really helpful, again, on the administration side. And also because as we scale, the accounting is just a lot more difficult and word count is pretty straightforward. So Acrolinks is a key part of how we're going to be able to scale in all of these different directions because we can't do it with just Kelly. And that's our roadmap. That's where we're at. So thank you all very much.